weapons you used, what was your favorite?
My favorite weapon? I think my sidearm pistol, 45 caliber pistol. And I'll give you a story about that pistol if you want to hear about it. During the time I was growing up, I was pretty good with a .22 rifle and a shotgun, and I felt pretty good. Even during the Army training, I got the sharpshooter's medal. So the sergeant came up to me and he says, "Oh, so you think you're a smart guy, eh?" I said, "Okay, I want you to get this pistol." And he took me 25 yards away and he says, "Here's a target. I want you to hit that target for the pistol." "Oh, no problem." Pulled out the pistol, missed it completely. "Try again." Missed it completely. And I didn't realize that the pistol is a very inaccurate thing. You know, with a short barrel, all you have to do is move that pistol a very slight bit and you're off. And I didn't realize that, because in a rifle, you know, you pretty well hold it steady. But anyhow, after I got to know that, and he showed me how to use it, then I got quite good with it. And I found out that you had to be very, very steady with your hand, and you had to be very, very accurate. And particularly when you squeeze the trigger. If you squeeze the trigger a little bit too hard, you'll move the pistol that much, and you'll miss the target completely. And I'm talking about a human target, not a little bullseye, a big, huge target. So that was my favorite, the pistol. And I was hoping I could bring it home, but I couldn't.
Did you ever use a flamethrower?
No. I never got involved. I don't believe there was any flamethrowers ever in European theater as much as there was in the South Pacific. Like they used to use flamethrowers in the South Pacific for purposes of these Japanese would go in the holes and they would go with flamethrower. But that we didn't have to. Like we never got involved with flamethrowing. No. Because I was a machine gunner and I was back, more or less.
Did you ever drive a tank?
Never which?
Ever drive a tank?
No. Never got involved with a tank, never drove a tank. I was close to a tank, but no. No, a tank was sort of like we were always either behind the tanks or in front of the tanks. But never tanked.
Were you ever involved in an ambush on German forces?
Ambush. Well, an ambush, the word ambush is sort of compared to an attack. An ambush would be sort of confining your attack to a smaller area. We never confined our attack to a small area. It was always on a broad front. We were always on a front. Like an ambush would be like in a small little town, you'd always converge on it. But we always moved it as a unit, like a line. Almost you could say, okay, we've got a line, we're going forward. So I can't say I ever got involved in it.
I thought an ambush was a sneak attack.
A sneak attack? Well, no, I can't say we had any sneak attack because we're in a front. I mean, you know, we're sort of during the war, you accumulated territory, so you moved forward, like you moved forward a tank. So it wouldn't. I don't think we ever had a sneak attack. We attacked towns pretty well. We'd go through the town as a unit, you know, and they would be expecting us, and most of the time they'd be out of there before we got there too, a lot of times, because they knew we were coming. They didn't want to confront us. And we did encounter a lot of prisoners that way too. So.
What division were you in?
It's 106, what was known as the Hungry and Sick. We were a Hungry and Sick division, infantry division. So that was, much as I hate to admit it, but.
Were you ever in a trench?
Yes, yeah, we dug trenches We dug foxholes quite a bit during the invasion. Like when we come into, as we did our landing, and that was the second thing we did was go into trenches. Otherwise, you were subject to fire.
Were you attacked along the way to Battle of the Bulge? Hold the lines.
We were never attacked in the Battle of Bulge. They just surrounded us. So we had no, I guess we had no defense. Like we couldn't fight. There was no way of fighting them. So they were, as I say, the Germans had a magnificent weapon, which was a mortar 88 millimeter. And that mortar was so deadly that we feared it, because all it was a tube. They dropped the thing down, it would shoot out. And they were so accurate with that they could hit, 1,000 yards. They could hit a person out quite easy. And the problem with that is when the mortar hit, it bounced up and exploded, and they send shrapnel all over. And that's how I got hit with one of the shrapnel, because they called it the Bouncing Bessie. Bouncing Betty mortar. During the invasion of a city, we killed two or three.
Did that freak you out? Did that scare you?
No, as I said before, death was not a situation. When you're in the war, you're either killed or be killed. And at that time, feelings were not prevalent. We had no feelings. We're numb most of the time. We were in a state of disarray in our minds, because they had us trained. They put us through brutal encounters, which made us not fear or not have any feelings whatsoever. And at this day, it's not a problem.
How did you end up in Canada?
Now that's a good story. That'll take quite a long time to tell. But anyhow, I'll go through it as quickly as I can. First of all, we were great fishermen. And all our family, we used to fish in Ohio. I'd go all things in Ohio. And I worked for a fellow in a gas station. And I used to deliver ice. And I drove an ice truck and deliver ice to the people in the area. We had no refrigerators in those days. So anyhow, he used to go to Canada and went up to Peterborough, and he would go fishing. And he asked me if I wanted to go fishing up in Canada. I said, oh boy, I'd love to go fishing. So I had to get my permission from my parents and all that. So he loaded us up in this. He had a Jeep, like a little Jeep from the pre-Ford Jeep. And we drove up to Lake Chamon, and we stayed in a cabin there. And of course, I loved it so much that eventually my friend and I, when we got out of the war, he was in the Navy and I was in the Army, we were going to buy a place. We wanted to pool our mustering out pay, which was only about I think it was a couple of $100 each or something. It was a very little amount, but anyhow, it was enough to buy a place. So we went, first of all, we went down to Florida, him and I. We drove down to Florida in this old Ford car, and we were going to buy a resort there. There was an old beat up cabins there, and we could have bought it. But then we said, well, no, we'll wait. Let's go to Canada and buy a place up on the lake up there. So we went up and we bought a place up in Lake Chamon. Actually, we met the fellow that owned this boathouse. I don't know, have you heard of the boathouse? No, it's on Lake Chamon. Anyhow, we took this, rented this boathouse from this fellow and said we'd like to buy it. He said, well, I don't know. He said, you'll have to come up and beat me in a game of checkers. So I said, okay. And of course, my dad taught me how to play checkers really well. He showed me a couple of real good moves. So I beat him at 3 games of checkers, And he sold me the place. And we bought it for, gosh, I think it was $150. Like 4 boats and a boathouse. And then we found out that it wasn't even on a private land. It was on private land. It was on a road allowance. But anyhow, I liked the place, and I thought it was great. So then there, getting into our personal life. But anyhow, we had the boathouse there, and my wife, I met my wife, she had the farm across the lake. And she used to come by, and we had big bonfires and everything at our resort there, and she used to come by and watch us. So we invited her there, and so once you get invited to the fires and the wiener roasts and everything else, and that was it. I married her. After our courtship. And then we stayed there, and we didn't realize that the weather got so cold. So we tried to stay in the boathouse. We couldn't stay there any longer. It got so cold we couldn't even heat it. So we left, and we come down to, I took her down to Ohio. We stayed there for quite a while, and then we figured, well, there's not too much work down there, so I come back to Toronto, and I got a job in Toronto. So I worked at the various little jobs in Toronto until I ended up with the elevator business. I stayed, that's how and of course, all the time we stayed there, we had the boathouse, and we worked and played and raised a family and the whole bit. We come up, a friend of mine and I, Jim Barber's his name, him and I come up to buy the boathouse, and we bought the boathouse. It was a 2-story building. It's still standing. Actually, we went by it the other day. But, and then we kind of separated ways. Like when I kind of met Mom, Marge, Grandma, and then he kind of went his way, and he became a airplane engineer. I mean, he was aircraft engineer. He worked at de Havilland for quite a while.
Nice.
Repairing airplanes and things. Then he went and moved back down to Cleveland. But his story is that on his way from Toronto to Cleveland, he had a bad accident and killed his wife that he married here, and there was a lot of entry problems that we had in those days. But that's the way I came to Canada. Because I met Grandma, and then we sort of got a good job here, and I loved working on mechanical things, and elevators I just fit into it, and I took up a lot of courses on electricity and went from there on.
How long were you captured?
Well, I think that it wasn't that long. I have to get the list here. There we go. December 17th to March 31st of 45. December 17th to 1944 to March 31st of 1945. So how long would that be? December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July.
Is that 4 months? 3 months?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, because the end of January, or end of December to
December,
end
January,
of March.
yeah, up to March.
Yeah, so it's about 3 months. January, February, March.
Yeah. About three or 4 months.
What rank were you?
Private first class. That's as high as I got. That's one above the lowest. I never made sergeant or anything else, so.
How'd you get to private first class?
Because I became a first gunner. And then machine gunner.
Did you like doing that? Was that kind of fun or no?
Well, I did. I liked it because it's better than to be an infantryman. We had a few more privileges than the infantryman. The regular foot soldier had a rifle. That's about all. This way we had a machine gun. We had a lot of people around us to help us fire the weapon. So it became interesting.
Nice. you put some